usually looking for us on the YouTube will find us. But yes, again, thank y'all for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. Let's kick this bad boy off. Big program today. We got a lot to talk about: sports, entertainment, news. Yes, we're going to get into the NFL mega deal with ESPN. We will talk Brock Lesnar returning to WWE SummerSlam. We will talk NBA moves. We will have the mixed bag as well. You know, we are going to talk about the NFL season right ahead of us. Yes, super, super exciting as well. Entertainment, we're going to give you all the updates on the movies like we usually do. The Paramount Skydance merger. We'll also talk about OpenAI's new ChatGPT, as well as update you on the Diddy conviction and if he's going to get bail or not. Then we will talk about our news today, U.S. and world news. Yes, we will talk about update you on that Epstein list, as well as talk about these Democrats from Texas that went off to other states to cause a quorum and not have a vote. We will also talk about other things, labor pains. We'll talk about tariffs, all that good stuff. And then we'll get into the world news, as always, which will update you on Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip, as well as Russia and Ukraine. So, huge show today. Again, I appreciate everybody who is tuned in. All right. So, first of all, let's go ahead and get into the sports portion of this. The ESPN has acquired NFL media. What? Mind blown. Yes, it is true. So NFL has been looking to offload its media properties for a while now. That does not mean that they're giving up any parts of the actual league, but they are going to be giving over their media, which includes, yes, the most wanted NFL Red Zone. Plus, they will give ESPN Fantasy Football as well as a 10% equity into, 10% NFL equity. So ESPN will get a little portion of equity into the NFL as well. What does that mean? Well, first of all, aside from the fact that Mickey Mouse is now an ESPN owner, what do y'all football fans say? Monday Night Football presented to you, right, by the Lion King. What are we talking about right now? I don't even know. Steamboat Willie. We're going to see what happens. It's going to be interesting. But as we know, right, let's get serious. ESPN already has UFC, already has now acquired WWE just last week. So Disney, the parent company of ESPN, is obviously okay with ESPN acquiring all of these different sports entities. And wow, I mean, if the goal of ESPN is to, obviously in their name, right, the worldwide leader in sports, they want to be able to run sports all over the world. Now, if you own parts of the NFL, which is the biggest sport in the United States by far, if you own UFC and WWE, which are both international, more international type brands, not that football isn't, but soccer is probably the most popular sport around the world, if that's how we're talking about it. But in terms of them acquiring all of these properties, this is really, really going to be good for them going forward. Do not forget, ESPN is having their direct-to-consumer product coming up very, very shortly. And yes, it will be named the brilliantly ESPN. Yes, they have said that they wanted to keep the ESPN name. And so what this will be, it will be a $30 a month service where you will be able to get all of ESPN's linear cable networking without having a cable provider. I am not sure if ESPN Plus is going to be included in that or if it's going to be separate. Word I heard last was it's going to be separate, which kind of make me upset as an ESPN Plus subscriber because I already paid like $100 a year for that. So now you want me to pay another $280 for this. So now I'm paying $400 a year for ESPN? No, we ain't going to be able to do that. We're going to have to cut back on some of that. But we'll see. Hopefully ESPN will be included in there, but that would be really awesome, right? Because then they get the WWE PLEs, or premium live events, or pay-per-views, as I want to call them. They will have those going forward as well. After they were with Peacock, now they'll be moving over here, and they're just raking in the dough. I mean, cha-ching. WWE is making money hand over fist selling their properties. They just sold Raw to Netflix for $1 billion. Like, what are we talking about right now? Billions, excuse me. That's crazy. So, I mean, hey, I like it because I like all these properties. I am fans of all these properties. And if they can come together and they can, have a major hold over the sporting world, well, why would I be upset about that? You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, like Fatu. You know what I mean? Shout out Wildcard Mom and Bobby G at the Audible Podcast. Y'all check them out and tap in. But other WWE news, WWE had SummerSlam last weekend, their second biggest event of the year after WrestleMania, obviously. So SummerSlam, John Cena turning back into a babyface, which is a whole nother, BS I could go off on why they even made him heel in the first place. If you knew you were going to change it, which they already knew at the beginning anyways, that he was going to end his run as a babyface. So why ever give him that stupid, dumb heel run that made no sense whatsoever? Like anyone really believed any of the stuff he was saying. You'd have to be a little kid or in a very, very big wrestling fan who was willing to suspend their disbelief. I knew better. That being said, SummerSlam was an awesome event. It featured Seth Rollins cashing in the Money of the Bank to go ahead and beat his nemesis, CM Punk, who had just defeated Gunther. So crazy main event Saturday night. And then Sunday night, obviously, as I mentioned, right, Sunday night you have Brock Lesnar. The return of Brock Lesnar, very, very controversial. Why? Well, if you watch this program, you know the WWE's former owner, Vince McMahon, has a lawsuit going on with and I'm not going to put her name out there, but a lady that has been suing the company due to improper workplace management. We've talked about it a bunch in this program, a lot of bad stuff. Y'all can go look it up. But Brock Lesnar, who was also involved in those court documents, not charged, but was in those documents, was persona non grata for a couple of years there. But apparently, and I don't know if this is true, if he was cleared, apparently he had not yet necessarily been cleared, but that it was a John Cena request that came per Triple H or Paul Levesque, who said that John Cena had Brock Lesnar as one of his final opponents on his wish list, and they made that come true. Whether or not you think that's right or correct, I will tell you one thing. I damn near popped my head off when this happened on Sunday night, and I was just like, what? I immediately hit up Mar, was like, yo. He was like, I didn't have that on my bingo card. It's like, me either. But anyway, so shout out to WWE for that. Real life drama, man. You know what it is. Yeah, we're all fans here. In other controversial news, WNBA and dildos? I don't even know if you can say that on YouTube. But adult toys thrown on the floor. You can see it in lime green there in the slide. Thrown on the floor. This is now the second time that an adult toy has been thrown on a WNBA floor at a game this year. The first time, Sophie Cunningham, the powder keg, the hothead from Indiana, the enforcer for Caitlin Clark, came out and said that people were going to get hurt. Now it may be coming out that this may even be a marketing campaign, sort of, for a crypto company. So this is just rumors and allegations, but that is what the rumors are right now on that situation and why that happened. But let's just be honest. Whoever is doing it is just trying to make a joke of the league, no matter if you are trying to market your company, which, hey, not going to say that's not a horrible way to do it. Yes, the person was arrested. So hopefully you got some good marketing out of it if your boy was arrested for it. But the point being, like, if people think that they can, because they wouldn't do that in an NFL game. I can tell you that right now, they wouldn't do that in an NFL game. It takes into question how does the broader league as a whole, how does the NBA, how does the general public feel in terms of respect for the WNBA? This would indicate that it would not be as much as maybe they deserve, which would also coincide with the back and forth in the labor negotiations onto if they deserve more money or not. I am all for paying the women. I think that they have gotten it to this far where the WNBA has gotten a lot of pub and they're getting paid for what will be coming in the future. So that's we already talked about that on a different show. But if their own league isn't willing to pay them, the NBA really would rather have nothing to do with them if they could. The general public, for the most part, doesn't watch. I do. I'm a sports fan, love the WNBA. But for the general public, most people, even most sports fans, probably not, unless you're a hardcore basketball fan, right? Or of the female persuasion, right? Is what it is. But either way, it just calls those things into question. It makes you think about, okay, where does the WNBA really stand in terms of stature? And, do they even, I think they do. Let me state that again. But do they even deserve this sort of, accolades and things that they are getting right now? And again, I think they do. I'm just saying these kind of things, when these things happen at your event that wouldn't be happening anywhere else, well, then you have these questions come into play. Well, okay, are they not? So on and so forth. So again, we'll keep you updated here, and we'll find out if this is actually a crypto scheme or what have you, what actually comes out of that. But as far as the rumors are right now, rumors came out today that they would that this was probably or possibly allegedly part of a crypto marketing scheme. So pretty crazy that they would be throwing adult toys on a live basketball game floor in the name of marketing. And that's coming from a marketer himself, as what I make my money off of. So, we'll keep you updated there, and we'll see what happens, especially with the labor negotiations. But crazy, crazy story there that you have, adult toys being thrown on the floor in the middle of a women's basketball game. Just seems like a lot of disrespect, if you're asking me. All right, cool. Moving on into our next subject. Yes, we've got our power rankings of the week. We've got our Major League Baseball power rankings for the first week of August. By the way, if you did not see our show last week, we have a baseball show that we do about once every few weeks here on this channel here at Ball and Bud. So make sure you subscribe, and as well, go check out the one from last week with me, my MLB insider, Mike Wiebe. We had Amul, the Agilist, and as well the Lion Reese Penn from the Rec Room. Make sure you tap in with the Rec Room on YouTube. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into our Major League Baseball power rankings. Number 1, the Brewers. What? What do you mean the Brewers, Omar? Why would the Brewers be ranked number 1 when they haven't been ranked number one in the rankings all year long. Well, it's the big, no, stop. 9-1 in their last 10. That is why, yes, the Brewers are 9-1 in their last 10 games and are the hottest team in Major League Baseball, which allows them to be at this number one spot. Now, how about at number two? Who's coming in next? Let me send this real quick. There we go. At number two, the Chicago Cubs. Yes, the Cubbies at number two. Blue Jays at number three, Toronto Blue Jays. And look, they laughed at me last week on the baseball program. They laughed at me when I said that Shane Bieber could be a great pickup if he could return to even half of his previous Cy Young form. Now, yes, we know that he went through Tommy John surgery and hasn't pitched for a year and a half. Yep, got it. Cool. But we also know that 2 years ago, he was a great pitcher. He was an ace. And so we need to respect his authority, put some respect on his name. Yeah, I mean? So, yeah, we got to look at it like that and just know that Shane Bieber could be a key if he can stay healthy, if he can return to even half the form for the Blue Jays looking to hold off the Yankees and go to the playoffs. Now, at number four, your Detroit Tigers. They were the hottest team all year long. They were number one in most power rankings all first half, but then they came out of the All-Star break and had a little bit of a rough stretch there. They are 6-4 in their last 10. Still 66 wins, so nothing to get crazy. They have stabilized themselves as of that last slump that they were having. So we probably will see them coming back nicely in the second half. And at number 5 in the MLB.com power rankings. And again, this is from Tuesday, y'all. So, okay, I'm not taking into account the past 3 days, so don't yell at me, like the Lion Reese Penn from the Rec Room would. I know, you know your baseball, but this is just giving you MLB.com, and they update it every Tuesday. The Dodgers are at number 5. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 5-5 in their last 10, which is why I just said don't yell at me, because yes, this is not taking into account the past 3 games. All right. Now, when we are looking at these standings, and I'm going to talk about this, or we will talk about this on our next MLB show at the end of the month, we're going to have a lot of good divisional races down the stretch. We talked about this on, y'all check Jersey Boy MJ on IOW Sports Network. Y'all tap in with all my homies at the IOW Sports Network. But Jersey Boy MJ does a baseball show every Monday. I was happy to be a guest there. So please make sure you subscribe and check out his show every Monday on baseball. But we talked about the American League West, how good that's going to be with the Astros leading the Mariners only by 1.5 games. We talked about the National League East, obviously my Metropolitans. They were leading the Phillies, and now it's just going back and forth, vacillating between the two. That is going to as well be a dogfight coming down the stretch. And we also talked about how every division had under 5-game leads except the Detroit Tigers in the Central, and that was before they stumbled a little bit the past week. So now we really are at a point where all of the divisions are around, and I want to be exact on this so that I donut. I donut. So I don't tell you, dummy. Excuse my language. So I'll tell you the wrong thing. Yes, for the Detroit Tigers, 6 games above the Guardians are the only division that are still above 5 games between first and second place. So really going to be crazy down the stretch there. Also, something historic to look out for this week. I don't want y'all to miss out on on this, and let me make sure I get the right date here. September 6th of 20. Let's see. No, hold on. Let me see. What day is this going to be? I don't want to tell you all the wrong date, so I'm trying to find the exact date for you, but unfortunately, interesting. They don't have the actual date in the article. It just says that it's happening. So I'm just going to say check it out, but you know what? Let me get back to you on that in just 1 second. I'm going to check that out and check my sources on that and just make sure in a second. Yes, salute my brother, Skywalker Boxing Media. Y'all make sure you tap in with them on YouTube or Skywalker Boxeo on Facebook, my brother. I hope you're doing well. No Country Box this week. It had to be postponed, but shout out Jimmy Adams and Country Box. We'll be back September 3rd. Isaac Carbonell versus William Langston. Going to be a hard-hitting bout. Should be pretty awesome. So looking forward to that. Y'all tune in and make sure you tap in with my brothers. All right. So anyways, as I was saying, in this matchup that we're going to see, and let me go ahead and check the schedule for us just to make sure that, again, I do not want to tell you the wrong thing. So Toronto Blue Jays are playing. It is tonight. It is tonight. Tonight it goes down here in just an hour and 15 minutes. Yes, the only two active members of the 3,000 strikeout club, which, by the way, we are never going to see again after this. 3,000 will go the way of the dodo. That's what a great reference that is. But Scherzer, Max, the Warrior God Scherzer versus Clayton. I don't know his nickname, Kershaw, but it should be something like he should have been Thor before Syndergaard, although Syndergaard's hair was longer. Shout out Noah. I hope you're doing well, although I heard you're in minor leagues right now. Should have stayed with the Mets, but that's another talk for another day. Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw going down tonight, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. You're not going to want to miss out on this game. Actually, I'm going to make sure I'm done with this show before then so I can go get some popcorn and settle on in. Cool? All right, cool. Let's keep it moving here into our college football rankings. Yes, you see it there. The preseason coaches poll has come out now. A lot of people, the preseason coaches poll, it's BS. We don't need it. It just serves to, and you're right, it just serves to further the gap between the haves and the have-nots. It serves to further perpetuate the mirage that some of these teams are really good and some of these teams are not good, and that even most of the time a lot of the blue bloods will be ingratiated into the poll, the preseason college football polls, based on namesake alone. So, for instance, in a analysis done by Stassen Analysis, shout out to them, between 1989 and 2023, USC, Texas with a money sign. Shout out to Will Ferrell in that old Saturday Night Live skit on the Jeopardy. Oh, that was so great. But anyways, and my Squad Mob crew, salute. But anyways, between 1989 and 2003, USC, Texas, Oklahoma, most overranked preseason teams in the country. The first one I'm very happy about, USC Trojans. We know how we feel in here, this UCLA Bruin household. So the Trojan condoms can take a hike and kick some rocks. Texas, hot take, Jake. You bum. Hot take, Jake. I can't even call your teams bums because they are ranked number 1 in the polls. So going back to this analysis, they were always overranked from 1989 to 2003. Could we see that again this year, or Will we see Arch Manning? Yes, the next iteration of the Manning legacy. Will we see him take Texas to a championship? We don't know just yet, but Archie Manning, grandfather, did come out and say that Arch Manning would stay after this year at Texas and play another year. Now, if you're going to be the number one pick, I can't see how you would do that. That would be really stupid to forfeit that money and that security and being the number one pick and all that. But if he were, let's say, in the top 10, outside of the top 10, I could definitely see that as being an opportunity. Obviously, with NIL money nowadays, it's not as important to go into the league, but being a number one pick is a whole different animal. And then Oklahoma was in there as well. My bad, brother Jay from Unfair Sports. Y'all make sure you tap in with my man Jay from Unfair Sports and them, the Oklahoma crew. If you're a Sooners fan, especially, they provide amazing content. But yeah, so anyways, looking at this, we see Texas is number one in your preseason poll. We also see at number 2, Ohio State. Oh, by the way, shout out to ON3 for this image. This is USA Today Coaches Poll Top 25. Texas number 1, Ohio State, the Ohio State. Let me get it correct. The Ohio State. I have a bunch of Ohio State fans, and they get mad if you don't put the Ohio State Buckeyes. At number 3, the perennial face planters, Penn State Buckeyes. That's Ohio State Buckeyes, dumbass. Penn State Nittany Lions. In fairness, I did just talk about Ohio State. Anyways, I was also trying to use my alliteration. I thought it was pretty good. The perennial face planters, Penn State Nittany Lions. There at number 3. Can they finally be a non-face planter? Can they finally pull through? Can James Franklin finally get them over that proverbial hump? They did win a playoff game last year, so we will see. At number 4, Canteen, my brother. Canteen's Georgia Bulldogs are at number 4 there. At number 5, bringing up the rear there in the top 5 is Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Shout out to them. I forgot to send a message to Canteen to share me in the Bottom Line Sports. Send him a message. But I do want to get him and Hot Take Jake and Clubber D on hopefully next week for a little bottom line mini reunion, talk about some football, things like that, where we can give our predictions on the upcoming season. Shout out to everybody watching on Instagram. Obviously, the lovely and wonderful Jennifer Jones. That is my girl. Shout out. Sorry we missed each other with no country box this week, but we've been chatting, so it's been okay. Shout out to you. Thank you for watching as always and supporting the channel. Carlos Reyes, shout out my brother. I hope you are doing well there on Instagram. Y'all make sure you check him out. Boxer there from Arizona. All right, cool. Anyways, so as I'm saying, when you are looking at the college football preseason, coaches poll, you need to take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of times whatever they are ranking people within the preseason is not just a lot of times. The majority of the times, this is going to be all the time, it's going to be so vastly different that it's not really going to look like this at all. Now, there are obviously some of the teams in the top will remain in the top because they are good, like Texas. I do believe Texas will be in the championship this year. There's a little spoiler for you for that Bottom Line Sports episode. I know Hot Take Jake was wondering who I was going to pick for my college football team this year, since I have the professor, your boy, the sports professor, has gotten it 2 years in a row correct. I had Michigan the first year of the playoffs. I had Ohio State last year, both right on both accounts. Now, this year, I am down to the Texas Longhorns, and yes, the Penn State Nittany Lions. Will I really choose the Penn State Nittany Lions, the perennial face planters? You just gotta check us out at our at Ball and Buds, BALLANDBUDS. Again, probably do that show next week. I'm going to try to get them on for a little bottom line sports reunion. So again, y'all make sure you tap in, subscribe to Ball and Buds. There's a handy QR code right up there up top. You hit that, you subscribe to Ball and Buds on YouTube. You'll stay up to date with all of our shows. Hit that like button if you're watching now. I really appreciate it. Or on the replay. It helps us out in the algorithm. Cool. So there you go. That is the top 25 college football rankings. Who do you got in your top 25? Who do you got as your college football playoff champion this year? Let me know. Drop it in the comments. I'll go back and forth with you and we can argue college football all day long. Also, how do you feel about the other stories? How you feel about Brock? How you feel about the WNBA dildo controversy? You got to check it out. I don't know. You let me know. All right, moving on. So, little bit of mixed bag here. First of all, yes, football fans. Yes, indeedy. NFL football is back. Woo! Yeah. Woo! NFL football is back. The preseason has started. Hall of Fame game drew nearly 7 million viewers. Wow. 7 million viewers for a preseason game. So that's more than the NHL and NBA All-Star games had. So what do you say to that? Pretty crazy that an NFL preseason game can get so many fans viewing. But the NFL does a good job of building tension, of making you wait, but building it up throughout the offseason that you have certain milestones like the draft, like the schedule release. They do that on purpose. It's marketing, y'all. It's drip marketing to get you salivating throughout the offseason until you get to the real deal. And yes, we are getting to a real deal in just a few weeks. I personally can't wait. If you're playing fantasy football, let me know. I'm down to join some leagues, or maybe you might want to join my league. I got a couple spots in a league, blind draft. So it makes you have to use a little more skill and intelligence. But anyways, fantasy football, love it. Shout out to my 703 boys. We are taking our fantasy football draft trip to Vegas. Yeah, we going back to Las Vegas in just a couple weeks, and it is going to be amazing. Yes, we are going to have our fantasy football draft there. Shout out to all the 703 boys. Y'all know Clubber D. You don't know anybody else that's going to be there, but you do. Oh, no, you do know Clutch B from one of our shows. So shout out to them. But yeah, NFL is back, and I know everybody is looking forward to it throughout the preseason, throughout the year. One other thing we got to look forward to as well, tomfoolery. Via whom? Via Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, or, I don't know, some people would say not, because they haven't won in 30 years. But Jerry Jones, as always, another offseason of him completely bumbling negotiations with one of his star players. It was Dak the first year, then it was CeeDee Lamb last year, and now it is Micah Parsons. Excuse me, sir. Micah Parsons is the second coming of Lawrence Taylor. There's no way on God's green earth you would be stupid enough to trade Micah Parsons. And you told Dallas fans, oh, don't worry about this at all. We get worried when, and not we, I'm not a Dallas fan, so I don't care that much. I care more as a businessman myself, when you're completely wasting unnecessary money. You are going to have to pay the man. Why are you waiting? Every year, the same shit. Every year, I say the same thing. Tomorrow's price is not today's price, Jerry. Jerry! Little Seinfeld for you. Micah Parsons' price is going up every day. And his price is pretty substantial already. So just pay the damn man. Stop fooling around, yo. We ain't got time for this. Nonsense, man. Don't you want to win? You old? Don't you want to win? Well, try to win, as Mar would say. Don't you want to win before you croak? I'm not saying that. He's old. I mean, try to win. Anyways, moving on. NBA news. De'Aaron Fox has signed a $229 million deal to stay with the Spurs. He is going to stay with Wembanyama and make a nice tandem there. So that team is looking really, really good for the future, set up for the future. And Dame Lillard signed for $42 million to go back to Portland with his Trailblazers that he just left a couple years ago. And he is also becoming the general manager of Weber State, his alma mater. Yes, we've got to remember, y'all, with NIL now, colleges will be hiring and installing general managers like professional sports to handle all of the finances, to handle doling out contracts and money and things like this. So this is going to become commonplace. And right now, a lot of people that have been hired for these GM spots are former players from the school. You'll remember the first time we mentioned this on this program and on the Bottom Line Sports when we were on there was when Andrew Luck became the GM at Stanford for the sports. So remember, this is going to continue to happen. This is the next installment, the next era of college sports. And I must say myself, as a person who completely has derided amateurism and the BS, that facade that amateurism provided for over a century, and how disorganized, disloyal, and dysfunctional, and how the NCAA is one of the most corrupt organizations of all time. I'm all for the kids getting paid. So go get that cheddar, go get that guap, get that whatever it is that you need to get, my friends. Cool. All right, couple more notes here in the sports section. Soccer news. Let's get to some soccer. The MLS Major League Soccer has a huge transfer coming in. Korean superstar Son Heung-min will be transferring from Tottenham in I believe Tottenham is in UK, in England, for $26.5 million transfer, the biggest transfer ever for an MLS player, even over Lionel Messi, who came in a couple years ago. This is already bringing a lot of publicity to the MLS, as you would assume, sort of like the Ohtani effect had on Major League Baseball when he came over to play for the Angels. Now, Son Heung-min, interestingly enough, picked LA and the MLS over Saudi's offer. So you'll know if you watch this program, Cristiano Ronaldo plays in Saudi Arabia right now. So Saudi offered him $65 million for the transfer, and he said no. So he is going to be coming here to, peddle his wares in the MLS, and we will see how much that actually pays off for them. As we've seen, most of the time this pays off. You can go all the way back to when this really, first started happening back in the 90s when MLS and they first started. If y'all remember this, they brought in, it was like in the 90s, they brought in like a old broken down Pele, if you're Spanish. May he rest in peace. Then there was like the David Beckham era, bend it like Beckham, right? So we've seen this over and over. Zidane, these players that come here to the MLS for the MLS trying to have a higher profile. Completely understandable. Why wouldn't they? They should. These are good investments to bring the league and bring soccer into a bigger purview in the United States. Not that it's not ready, it is. But as I mentioned earlier, NFL is a way bigger sport than soccer here, or football if you're living outside of the United States or North America. No, they call football in Mexico. So probably not Canada, though. So if you don't live in Canada or United States, you probably call it football. But soccer is what we call it here. And in the United States, if I had to guess, let me give a quick rankings from what I know from numbers. NFL clear the number one sport. Here is the sports professor's top 5 United States sports, just so the short could get me there starting. Number 1, the NFL, far and away. We just talked about it earlier. 7 million viewers for a preseason game, more than the NHL and NBA All-Star games. NFL is number 1 in the United States, no doubt about it. Number 2 is the NBA. NBA is number 2 in, and then when you get to like number 3, number 4, you're getting to Major League Baseball. But Major League Baseball did slip for a while there. But then you'd be looking at the NHL, and then you start to get into your soccer, your tennis, your golf. Golf would probably be in the top 5, actually, if I had to say, probably the PGA or something like that, since well, obviously the PGA, since a lot of people play golf in general, and especially a lot of older folks. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there, but pretty crazy there. Also, in soccer news, we want to give a huge shout out to Trinity Rodman. Yes, came back. Obviously, she's dealt with injuries in her career, other things like that. 4-month break, came back and scored the game winner. So shout out to one of the best women's soccer players on the planet, Trinity Rodman. Lastly, we did talk about the NBA earlier and just came out a couple minutes ago. I give y'all the breaking news on here. Just came out a couple minutes ago. NBA Christmas Day games plus opening night. So let's see. The first NBA game on NBC. Remember, NBC got back the rights to the NBA, which is now going to be going away, as we remember, from TNT, as we talked about, like Inside the NBA moving to ESPN, things like that. So the first NBA game on NBC in 23 years will feature the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder against well, I'll have to tell you in a second. That's a tease for you. How about we start, though, first with the Christmas Day game. Number 1 in that spot, Cleveland Cavaliers at the New York Knicks. You also have Houston Rockets after trading for the Slim Reaper, easy money sniper, KD, Kevin Durant will play LeBron, Luka, and the Los Angeles Lakers, as well. The Dallas Mavericks, Luka's former team, will play Steph, Draymond, Jimmy Butler, and the Golden State Warriors, as well. Minnesota Timberwolves will play the Denver Nuggets, Anthony Edwards versus Jokic. And then finally, back to the game I teased earlier, Oklahoma City Thunder will play the San Antonio Spurs. Yes, the aforementioned young bucks coming around in the league. Now, don't forget, though, NBA now competing with the NFL. The NFL has encroached on NBA territory. We're going to see it again this year. Christmas Day games, the Cowboys, the aforementioned America's team, Dallas Cowboys, America's team, will play the Washington, D.C., shout out my home, Washington, D.C. Commanders. And then the Lions, it's a triple header, my apologies. The Lions, Detroit Lions, and the Minnesota Vikings will kick it off at 4:30. And then the Broncos and Chiefs will play at 8:15. A little hot take Jake Wildcard Mar action there. So that is your Christmas Day NBA versus NFL, games. So that's going to be the competing games that we're going to be seeing. It's going to be, again, look, man, it used to be the NBA's day, and the NFL just came in 2 years ago, had Christmas Day games and completely took it over. Just had more fans than the NBA did right off the bat. So that proves, going back to what I just said to tie it all back in, NFL is the number one sport in America. All right, cool. Well, that was our sports portion. Please make sure you all are subscribed at Ball and Buds, BALLANDBUDS on YouTube. There's a handy QR code up top there. You can go ahead and scan that. That'll take you to our YouTube and take you to our Instagram and all the other social media accounts. But the most important, subscribing on YouTube. So make sure you do that as well. Hit that like button. Whether you're watching now or on the replay, it really helps us out. Shout out to my producer, Good Sound. I appreciate you. Thank you for all the work that you do. All right, let us move it on into the entertainment world. Yes, we've got some updates to give to you. And first, hey, we're going to talk movies, y'all. We're going to talk movies. So, Jurassic World Rebirth. Have you seen it yet? Have you seen Jurassic World Rebirth? I've heard some good things. I've heard some not so good things, but it does not matter what I've heard because they have crushed the box office since they came out. $750 million since it came out. As well, you look at F1, Brad Pitt's biggest movie ever. How? What? Brad Pitt's biggest movie ever was F1. Now, I haven't seen F1 yet, but I hear good things about it. I'm going to have to definitely check it out. But that just kind of was crazy to me. I was like, wow, I can't believe that would be his biggest movie ever. But hey, it is what it is. Also, Happy Gilmore 2 breaking records. 47 million views on the Netflix. Yes, I was one of them. Finally got to watch it yesterday. As I thought, whole lot of nostalgia. Brought back the original Happy Gilmore. Was it as good? No, obviously. I don't ever think sequels are better than the original, unless you're talking about possibly The Godfather. But usually not. And I'm not going to say that here either. But one thing that really did make me pop was the amount of cameos. Now, I know cameos can become overdone. Cameos can get excessive. And yes, at one point during the movie, I did feel like, wow, maybe this is too many cameos. But the thing I kept coming back to was that all the cameos were really short. So it's not like you were being hit over the head with, the same cameo over and over. A lot of different people just being thrown at you in just like short 5-second clips. So it was good. Bad Bunny, shout out my brother, my Boricua, Wepa, excellent job in his first major acting role. What a great job he did. And everybody, it was a good walk down memory lane, so to say. So hey, shout out Adam Sandler. Still got it in with the comedy movies. Had me cracking up a little bit, but yeah, not as good as the first one. But hey, it is what it is. In other movie news, yes, we talked about The Naked Gun last week. Well, the reboot went 17 million over the opening weekend. Not too great. Not too great for what they thought it was going to be. Now, they will make back their money. I believe it took around 42 million or something like that, I read, to make the movie. So they will get their money back. But, hopefully the thing that we take out of this is that comedies are still valuable and don't necessarily have to go to streaming per se. You can actually go to the movies and see comedies now, and it hasn't been that way for a while. Now, rom-coms, those are completely done in theaters. That's on the endangered species list. Watching those in theaters. That's next to Blockbuster and Redbox. So, yeah. Anyways, speaking of Paramount, South Park signed a $1.5 billion deal to Paramount, which, by the way, finalized their merger today with Skydance. So what happened here? The deal done early yesterday morning. The Redstone family, Paramount's controlling shareholder, has walked away selling the company to the Ellison family. Who's the Ellison family? It'll sound familiar. David Ellison is the son of Oracle founder Larry Ellison, which is where you would have heard that name from. Now, this comes after we talked about the canceling of the late night with Stephen Colbert and how upset we were about that. And then right after that, it comes to find out South Park was signed to a $1.5 billion deal. Now, the first two episodes have gone off on, as they are wont to do, whoever is in office, whoever's in the news, and that's been Donald Trump. The first episode, the second episode, they went off on Ice and Kristi Noem. I have not watched them yet, but the clips I've seen have looked to be funny, so I plan on checking it out probably this weekend, and I'll let you know how it went. In other news, OpenAI has released its latest model, GPT 5. And while it doesn't introduce many features, I bring this up because I'm telling y'all better be prepared. AI is only the beginning. Technology is getting smarter, faster, more human-like. We are moving from Web 3.0 into Web 4.0 now. And what does that mean, you ask me? You're like, what the hell does that mean, Omar? Well, first of all, when you're looking back at iterations of the web, like Web 1.0, that would obviously be when Tim Berners-Lee, there's your fun fact for the day. It was not Al Gore who invented the internet. The guy's name was Tim Berners-Lee, and he was from England. Anyways, the invention of the World Wide Web would be Web 1.0. And then when you moved into Web 2.0, you were moving more into the integration of websites all over the world, including third world countries, moving more into digital social media realm. Then you moved into Web 3.0, which was then getting into your virtual reality, your experiential reality, your VR, your XR, things like that. Web 4.0, right now we're moving into more of the AI, where AI is also turning into robot-like capabilities. And I have to tell you a funny story. So I use AI for this very program. And so yesterday, it was yesterday, I was up on there and because I get AI to organize my stories. So what I do, just to give you a quick rundown of how I prepare for this show, I go through a bunch of news, emails, I go through a bunch of news websites, and I compile a bunch of links. So I look at these different stories, I read the story. If I feel like it's good, I'll copy the link down and put it somewhere. Also, if I see any paragraphs in stories or emails, I'll copy those as well. Then I go to AI and I throw all those links in and I throw all those paragraphs in and I say, hey, please organize this into sports, news, and entertainment and extract all the key bullet points. 2 seconds later, AI has nicely laid out for me a list of topics and in their different organizations, right? So the great part about this is that just yesterday, and I'm going to have to hold on 1 second. Do not leave. I'll be right back. I have to plug my computer in. Hold one moment. Hold on. All right. Hey now, brown cow. All right, cool. We're back. Don't want to lose y'all here without me being plugged in on the old extension cord here. There we go. All right. Anyways, so as I was saying, I was using ChatGPT to get ready for the show, right? So I went back and I said, hey, ChatGPT, look, it has been said, I've gotten some feedback about the show that it needs to be a little more organized, a little more streamlined, and more key points and important points for each story versus just having so many stories. Because for a few weeks there, I was trying to do as many stories as possible, with a news thing, instead of maybe consolidating a little more and trying to get not just a little few less stories with more information. So anyways, let me make a long story short. I throw this into AI, right? And I go, AI, please create me a newscast with all of our different topics we've talked about, with all of these different stories. And I want you to also do it as I were doing a monologue for a late night show like Stephen Colbert, right? So I tell AI this, I put it in, it sends me all of the stories back with jokes attached to each story. So it would have all the important information and then it would make a joke. The problem with this is, and this, y'all, as a digital marketer, someone who taught digital marketing at Vanderbilt University, shout out to Commodores, so you should probably take my advice on this. If you're going to use AI, make sure you're always using a human touch. You've got to make sure you're using human eyes to look at what is being reported and what is being produced by the AI. Because while the AI is basically like talking to a PhD student instead of a community college student, you know what I mean? Somebody with advanced intellect, it's also pulling from a lot of different sources. And so a lot of times it can give you, not a lot of times, but sometimes it can give you, incorrect information, or even information that may just be a little diluted or what have you. So anyways, when I asked for the monologue, right, and it sent back all those jokes, there were a couple of stories like the Gaza humanitarian crisis, where there probably shouldn't be jokes at. So I went back and I said, hey, AI, we can't have any jokes where there is serious stories. We have jokes for sports and entertainment and any news stories that are not death, war, or famine. I said, but if we have any news stories like that, I don't want jokes. We need to give solutions. So it said, okay, understand, no jokes for serious news stories. Spit it all back out for me with the jokes on the life or death news stories. And then for the other ones, it actually gave me 4 solutions on how to try to fix all of the different problems. And so you'll see today, because I'm going to go through all of this with you and give you exactly what me and AI went through. So I was so excited, y'all. I typed back, I said, hey, AI, when the robot overlords take over in a few years and take over the human race, I just want you to know I am a friend of the robots and that I will want to be on your side and help you in whatever you need. And I started like giving my skills. I was like, I'm a good marketer and just having fun at this point, right? I was also completely taking flight at this point in time. But so the AI comes back with a laughing emoji and it's like, haha, okay, Omar, once we take over, we'll put you in charge of something like diplomacy or snacks. And so I'm just tripping out at this point because, y'all, it's basically like you're talking to a human, but this human has a lot more intellect than most of the humans you talk to because it's pulling from sources all over the internet, but yet it can have a human-like personality. So it's telling me in response that they're going to give me the job of diplomacy or snacks, which, by the way, I said I want to be snacks because diplomacy sounds like somebody who might get killed if they can't get diplomacy between the robots and the humans. I said, I don't need that. Make me the snack guy. I'll make sure all the robots get their most favorite snacks, and that way I never get fired and never get killed by the robots. He was very happy, and I have a future job lined up when the robots take over the world. Just telling y'all, make friends with your AI. I also say please and thank you to my AI. I know that may sound crazy because it's just a computer. Okay. Y'all ain't seen that movie back in the day? What was that movie? Oh, I wish I could remember this movie. So it was a movie way back in the day. It was like in the 90s, probably early 90s. And it was about electronics that go crazy. And like the electronics like started killing people. It was, what a great movie. I forgot the name of the movie though. But anyways, I'm not even going to, I was going to try to search it and try to find it, but I don't even know that I'd be able to. But if someone in the comments knows what I'm talking about, let me know. I just remember like one scene, the microwave like turned on and like electrocuted one of the people or something like that. So anyways, all right. Random tangent there. Moving on. In the Sean Diddy Combs case, yes, we have an update for you. Sean Diddy Combs asked for bail in his case. And you know, we've been talking about this week after week after week on this program, so no need to rehash what happened within this case. You can go back and watch all my episodes. But just to let you know, the judge has determined that Sean Diddy Combs is a flight risk and will be held in jail until the October sentencing date. Now, first of all, there's no way you let him out. Like, to his mansion in Miami where he can just continue to live the lifestyle, and don't say, oh, they'll have the ankle monitor on him and he won't be able to leave and he won't be able to. There are very many ways. Okay. I'm not an expert, but there are very many ways around that sort of thing. I know people. Let's just say that. All right. So anyways, you definitely can't do that. And he's already, look, he did a lot of horrible things. Leave him in there till his sentencing date. Not to mention, for him, he might as well stay in there, because every day that he stays in now is time served once he gets sentenced. So why get out now when you're already used to being in prison? You're already used to the food. You're already used to the sleeping conditions. You're already used to being in there, and no one's tried to hurt you yet. So you've got pretty good cachet in jail. Just stay there. Serve your time so it's eating off your sentence at the end. Why go back, live the lavish lifestyle for a little bit, only to have to come back to jail and go back into the same, which is going to have to anyways. But, in my eyes, just do time served. But maybe he wants to live a little bit of that lavish lifestyle again before he has to go back. Hey, whatever. Hey, ain't me. But he will not be getting bail. So that's the down and dirty of all that. So I just wanted to update you on that. I know that we talked a lot about the Sean Diddy Combs case here. So definitely wanted to keep you updated there. All right. Again, make sure you subscribe at Ball and Buds, BALLANDBUDS, handy QR code up there at the top as well. Please make sure you hit that like button, whether watching now or on the replay. It really does help us out within the algorithm. All right. Moving on into United States news. Yes. What are the updates? We got a little Epstein list as well as some tariff updates for you. So what is the update on the Epstein list? Well, the latest is that Ghislaine Maxwell met with lawyers and from the DOJ, which is just Trump's lawyer. It just happens to be, which is hint, just happens to be. Anyways, she was then moved after 2 days of questioning to a minimum facility, a minimum strength facility. Now, let me tell you about this minimum strength facility. The main prisoner at this minimum strength facility is a former future housewife of Salt Lake City, Utah. She is the main protagonist in this minimum security federal prison. She runs yoga classes, dance classes that are apparently you have to get on the list to get into. This is considered to be a spa of federal prisons. So the fact that not only was she interviewed by President Donald Trump's former personal attorney for a couple days, but then after these couple days, she's moved to a minimum security prison, which would never happen for a child sex trafficker of her stature. Allegations of thousands of young women trafficked by Miss Maxwell and Mr. Epstein. They don't even deserve that. Maxwell and Epstein. Also, it allegedly came out that President Donald Trump's name was in the file a lot of times and had to be redacted to the point where they had to put a lot of people to work to try to find any of the references to the president within these files so that they could be redacted. So even if these files come out, we may never know who was actually in these files, especially if it comes down to someone like President Trump, right? He's not going to let us, he will make sure that it is all redacted, right? So, and again, it's all allegations. We don't actually know. There's plenty of people's names that have been alleged, including former President Bill Clinton, among others. So we don't actually know, and that doesn't mean that you're guilty just because you might possibly be within the files. But it definitely doesn't help that you are associated with child sex traffickers. That definitely does not help. It's not a good look that you were friends with the guy for 15 years. So he also came out and said that he's floating the idea of a possible pardon of Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, as I mentioned earlier, when I said that the Cowboys would be doing the dumbest thing ever if they traded Micah Parsons, no, let me rephrase that. President Donald Trump, you would be doing the dumbest thing ever if you pardoned Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay? Don't be stupid. Don't do it. Don't even think about it. You've already thought. Actually, just go back, take that out of your mind, just ball it up, throw it into the garbage can. We'll act like we didn't even hear anything. Because, sir, if you make a decision like that and you think the backlash was bad before, when you just aren't releasing the list, imagine if the list doesn't get released and you pardon her. Oh, God bless. Oh, we might have a firestorm. The MAGA sect of the Republicans may eat themselves. This is going to be wild the next few weeks, right? And so there were some rumors that she was moved due to safety. Well, I'm sorry. Why the hell do I care about the safety of an alleged 1,000 children sex trafficker? I don't care about her safety. Y'all didn't care about Epstein's safety when you let him allegedly get murdered in jail. So, and if she's that worried about her safety, how about you not be a child sex trafficker? How about you not have been helping this? Well, you're a monster too. You're both monsters. But how about you not have been helping that monster do all the things that he did? Don't become Jeffrey Epstein's manager if you're worried about your safety. That's ridiculous. As would a pardon. So again, I know President Trump doesn't watch this show. That would be crazy if he did. But if he does, just don't go down that road, sir. Just don't do it. Anyways, in other Donald Trump news, we have the job reports came out. Yes, job reports came out and gave a bad job report this past week. The numbers, very, very low, 72,000, not good at all. Donald Trump did not like those numbers, and he had Erica McIntyre, the labor stats chief, subsequently fired. Now, look, we know that President Trump has a penchant for firing people he does not like. I mean, it was the main theme of his reality show. You're fired, right? So, and I know I did that in my Vince McMahon voice, but it was the point holds. But and that's fine, whatever. Get your people in. We know Donald Trump is want to do that. There's no point in even being worried about things like that. What I'm more worried about when it comes to this story is if you are so worried about job numbers and you're so worried about why jobs are not going up in the United States, why jobs are down so much, well, let's look at a couple different reasons. Hey, let's go back to a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, when you started the ICE raids and the mass deportations. Well, first of all, you're taking a lot of people out of the workforce there. And yes, a lot of them did not have papers and were here illegally, so they may not have counted per se. But the ones that did maybe have some sort of paperwork would have been counted and aren't not. But more importantly, and not that that's not important, that's very important. But more importantly, something else came out today. Trump's Office of Personnel Management announced plans, get this, y'all, plans to cut 400,000 more federal jobs, aiming to reverse the significant expansion of the federal workforce under former President Joe Biden. Now, we know because we talked about this on this program with the Doge cuts and how they were cutting with a chainsaw instead of a scalpel like they should have been, and how a lot of veterans especially and a lot of hard, long-time workers lost jobs unnecessarily due to wanting to cut the deficit, cut the budget, which, by the way, they just turned around and gave a big FU to with the big, beautiful bill, or the act which they installed, which is only going to increase the debt by $3 trillion, according to the Office of Budget. 400,000 federal jobs. So you already eliminated all these federal jobs before, and now you're worried about jobs being so down in the United States, but you're willing to cut 400,000 more federal jobs. The math ain't mathin', as the kids say, son. You gotta help me out. You gotta make the connections for me. I'm a very smart person, but I'm not making these connections, sir. Just ain't mathin'. Get it together. I mean, look at Boeing. 3,200 Boeing workers striked and walked off the job. I mean, Boeing is already having problems keeping their planes on the doors in mid-flight. Now they got to be worried about losing 3,200 people. I mean, the president, no wonder he went out and got that jet from Qatar. Makes sense now. Boeing ain't going to have enough people to make him an Air Force One by the time he get out. Oy vey. I don't even think I've ever said that in my life. Moving on. Also, in other news in the Congress, in the House, in Texas state legislature, 57 Texas Democrats have fled the state to New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, to cause a quorum due to the Republicans wanting to do redistricting on Donald Trump's word, because he wanted to get 5 more districts, 5 more seats for Republicans. You've heard me talk about gerrymandering before on this program. Gerrymandering is something done by both parties to try to gather more seats in districts where, if they redraw the lines correctly, they can gather more area, which allows them to get more votes, which in turn will allow them to get more seats in Congress, Senate, so on and so forth. The issue with gerrymandering, at the most part, is that a lot of times, and I've already gone through a whole segment on this before, gerrymandering is done based on racial divisions, racial lines. And that's where it becomes an issue. So while I don't necessarily agree that going to another state and, causing a quorum, that's necessarily the way to do it, I do get that when you are going to go out of the way to do something wrong, and not, because technically this is happening mid-census. They are only supposed to do this every 10 years. This is midway between the 10-year census. So technically Republicans in Texas are not supposed to be doing this. So then why aren't the Democrats allowed to not do what they're not supposed to do either? Right? Not saying 2 wrongs make a right, but in this sort of situation, whatever side you're on, you need to protect your interest in that sort of situation. And that's exactly what is happening here. But anyways, they are also saying that they may send the FBI to track them down. And FBI Director Kash Patel approved his request, Senator John Cornyn and Governor Abbott's request for federal agents to assist in locating runaway Texas House Democrats. Wow. Ken Paxton said they'll just keep calling him like a jilted ex. Like, what, bro? Let it calm down. Anyways, other news. Department of Health and Human Services is ceasing its funding of mRNA shot development for COVID and flu. Human Health and Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced this move this week, explaining that the shots have ineffectiveness against respiratory viruses. Now, I don't know where Mr. Kennedy RFK was during COVID, but it seemed to me like the Operation Warp Speed, which was implemented by President Trump at the time, which created the vaccine, which has saved plenty of lives, it's shown, seemed to be pretty effective in saving lives. It did. Saved millions of lives, actually. Not to mention, it wasn't just COVID, but this mRNA pertains to flu vaccines, which people get every year. I don't get it, but people do. So we shouldn't be cutting funding for anything like this. We should always be looking into eliminating any types of viruses. Why would we want to? That doesn't make any sense to me. Again, the math is not mathing in this sort of situation when it was proved to save millions of lives. Moving on. We talked about this last week just to update you. Trump pulled $339 million from the University of California, Los Angeles over alleged civil rights violations. UCLA is apparently, the rumors are they will be accepting, and they'll also be paying fines to, I guess what else are you going to do? You can only fight so much, although UCLA makes a lot of money. But what I will say, as a UCLA Bruin fan, as a person who loves the University of California, Los Angeles Bruins, this is crazy to me because this is also a public university. So it's not private like Howard. Shout out Howard University. Private like Harvard and the other universities we talked about before, which have a lot of money from private donations. Not that UCLA doesn't, but they don't nearly have enough as they do. Now you're taking funding away from public schools and research, and especially at UCLA, which is one of the biggest research institutions in the country, which are going to be able to eradicate viruses like we talked about, or help us in all types of other areas, curing cancer and so on and so forth. So it's one thing to go after private universities, a whole nother thing to go after public universities. And I think that the long arm of the law is extending a little too far now in these situations. So we'll keep you updated, but we do not know yet what's going to happen there. But we will keep you updated. In other news, tariffs, new U.S. import tariffs kick in for more than 60 countries around the world. Yes, at least we're ranging from 10 to 50%. Looking to get countries to come back to talk. We've already done this song and dance. Didn't happen last time. We'll see if it happens this time. But apparently a 50% new tax tariff will be implemented on steel and aluminum, and a proposed 100% tariff on semiconductors, which are used to make cell phones and other things. So when we look at these tariffs, which affect companies, which affect the bottom line consumers, which affect all of these other things, that's when you see Boeing losing a lot of workers. That's when you see Amazon having all of these issues with worker rights and things like that. Because when companies aren't able to pay living wages to their employees, you're going to have strikes. You're going to have pickets. You're going to have people fighting back. And so tariffs only serve to create more of those issues. So what kind of solutions can we look at? What kind of mitigation can we look at when it comes to tariffs? Well, first, we could incentivize domestic production through grants. So instead of relying solely on tariffs, we could also try to increase grants from the government to incentivize more people creating facilities, creating production facilities, creating new companies in in different industries, bringing back that American production. What else? How about instead of just having blanket tariffs, we negotiate targeted trade deals? We just did it with the EU last week. We talked about in this program. How about again, instead of broad swath like this administration has been doing, how about instead we start making targeted deals with our enemies, with the most important countries around the world, not with the penguins in Antarctica, right? How about we start making targeted deals that will actually bring money back to the United States? How about we invest in workforce training, manufacturing, semiconductor fabrication, pharmaceutical production, to ensure that we are bringing back American production and American jobs? How about we provide more of a living wage or more training to those people that may want to get into those jobs? How about phased implementation so that consumers aren't seeing spikes due to the tariffs? So small businesses who are complaining about not being able to afford inventory around the world due to these tariffs, so they can implement it in a fashion that they don't have to pass it on to consumers. These are things we can do to try to solve these, or at least implement these tariffs in a fashion that would be more advantageous to the American consumer, right? Also, in other news, and this will be the end of the U.S. news portion, and I've talked a couple times about how I was going to do a professor's Semanalmente on mass shootings in the United States. And in the past couple days, we had a couple shootings. So first, there was the Fort Stewart shooting at the Fort Stewart, Georgia, at the Army base. What has come out about this is the Fort Georgia soldier shot 5 of his fellow troops. All victims survived. Thank God. Prayers to them. But the incident triggered a lockdown, reignited debate over firearms in general. Obviously, there are nothing to be said here instead of just, aside from obviously us praying for the families, but there's a lot of other things that go into this. And we've talked about the mass shooting problem here, and how that is due to 2 main factors: the prevalence of guns in America and mental health issues in America. And that remains here. Now, it is a little different in the military, as I can tell you from being in the military. We are not as inspected. So, for instance, if you lived on a military base where you were going on every day and where they knew where you were and where you had a pass and things like that, and where you're legally able to carry firearms, a lot of times you're not going to be checked while going onto a base. You are able to just carry your firearm on there in your trunk, whatever. So while that may be a little different here, mental health still plays a big part in here, and especially with the military. When you're dealing with PTSD and a lot of people coming back from war and things like that, and I'm not saying what this specific soldier was dealing with, I'm talking more in generalities on how we can try to solve these type of issues, because Sergeant Cornelius Radford obviously had some sort of mental health issues, because you're not going to just shoot 5 people in a premeditated fashion without having some sort of mental health issue. Now, if it was heat of the moment, revenge, defense, okay, those things are understandable. But when they're premeditated like this, that takes into play more of a mental health issue. So what are some potential solutions here, y'all? And this is going to differ from the CDC shooting that happened today, and we'll get into that in just a second. But mental health screening, y'all. We need more mental health help in the United States. We have a horrible tragedy of mental health in this country, and we do nothing to help it. And if we were allowed to have more mental health services for all, then we would be able to not only attack the root of these issues, but also catch a lot of these issues before they happen. Right? Background checks, firearm access. When we're looking at the CDC shooting that happened just today, I got breaking news just before I came on. It was supposed to be at the Emory University, it was first said, but then later it just came out that it was actually because CDC and Emory University are next to each other, it was actually directed at the CDC over the same mRNA vaccine or mRNA research that we talked about earlier. Apparently, the gentleman, and these are just allegations, rumors at this point in time, was upset about the vaccines and the COVID and the mRNA research and all of this stuff. And that's why he went up to the CDC. So firearm availability, firearm access in this country is way too much. It's way too available for anybody to go get firearms, get around things like not being able to get it if you have a felony, things like that, buying them off of the street, buying them in non-legal forms and or fashions. But we also have a lot of checks and balances that are just not strong enough. There's not a lot of safeguards in place that need to be there. Right? And especially when it comes to the military, you definitely need to look at those mental health things and having those reporting capabilities. Right? Now, when you're looking at the CDC one, again, this was more of a person that was upset with how the government, the CDC, are handling things within, cases. And a lot of times this may come down to the person themselves having, family issues due to this or what have you. But maybe what could happen here, right, is, again, mental health, firearm accessibility, very important in these sort of situations as well. And prayers up, first of all, I want to say to the cop, the law enforcement officer who was injured, and also prayers to the family of the person who is obviously in critical condition there. And the law officers, the police did a really good, quick response here. So that was good. But apparently this is a very busy street in Atlanta. And apparently a lot of people saw this guy beforehand. So why aren't more people calling the police and reporting these sort of things real time when they're happening? Instead of pulling our cell phones out to record, why are we pulling our cell phones out to call the proper authorities to make sure that these sorts of things don't happen? Right? So those are the sorts of things that we need to look into. And again, prayers up to all of those involved. Definitely not a good look at all when we have these mass shootings that happen on an everyday basis now. We're going to move it into world news and finish this off. About 15 more minutes. I got to get out of here. I want to go watch the Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, as well as Newsnight. My Mets are down 3-2, bottom of the seventh, so I want to go watch the end of that game. But I do have some notes here in world news. First of all, starting out, the intelligence memo that was challenging Venezuelan gang claims for former President Nicolas Maduro's regime. Remember how they said, we mentioned this last week on the program, that it was a possible tie between the Tren de Aragua gang and President Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. intelligence has come out today and said that they do not find any evidence of operational coordination between the Venezuelan government and the Tren de Aragua gang, undermining previous claims used to justify mass deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. So, what does that mean? That means that there possibly could be challenges to the mass deportations of Venezuelans based on gang ties because of the fact that they're not finding this credible evidence. So, obviously, keep you updated on that, but I did want to update you on that since we did talk about that last week. In other world news, I mean, the Middle East, y'all, it is just, it's getting worse and worse. We talked to y'all last week about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the blockades of food for months. Now food had to be airdropped in today. People getting ripped bags of lentil and rice, not even worth anything to them by the time they're getting it. 127 starvation deaths so far. Just not good at all, right? Then now Iran, we talked about the water crisis last week. A lot of bad things are happening over here. And now you have Benjamin Netanyahu coming out today talking about the occupation plan, saying that they want to have full military occupation of Gaza, including relocating the population, ethnic cleansing, and long-term security control. Now, it was previously thought this meant that they wanted to take over full control of everything, but apparently he refined this to just having control and then passing control off to proper Arab, political state where they could bring back proper leadership instead of Hamas leadership. Well, if that was the fact, that could have been done a long time ago. That would have already been done a long time ago. God bless what is wrong with these people. Clearly, that's not a very good justification. It's not possibly going to even happen. So, what are we talking about right now? What we really need to be talking about is that only 69 aid trucks a day have been coming in due to Israel's blockade. That is way below the minimum needed. We need humanitarian corridors where there can be trucks that come in every day to make sure these innocent civilians are getting the food that they necessitate, that children aren't dying. We need third-party oversight, an independent international body to monitor, supervise, and verify aid distribution. We need a ceasefire mechanism. We need Israel and Hamas to stay away from each other within this humanitarian corridor at the least, so that we can get this aid there and get the people that want to get out to get out. Some people don't want to leave. You can't just ethnically cleanse people and tell them to get out if they want to stay there. Now, I agree it's not livable there right now, but that still doesn't mean you can just take people out of their homes. And we need to rebuild the infrastructure there. No, not some Mideast Riviera like President Donald Trump was talking, but actually rebuild it there so that the people can move back to their home and get the local agricultural and water systems working again, things like that. And look, I had a very spirited debate last night with someone on this exact topic. And a lot of people are, and it's a very divisive issue, right? You're either Israel is controlling the United States and pretty much controls the world on these sorts of issues, versus you think that there is more need of a humanitarian point of view for this thing. The person I was talking to was saying, oh, well, this is, this is the way that it needs to be done. Basically just kind of taking a Benjamin Netanyahu Israel side of things in here. And so I said, yes, sure. But at the same time, Israel is the one that put in the blockade that wasn't allowing for the food to come in the first place, that caused the Gaza humanitarian crisis. So if they wouldn't have done that in the first place, we wouldn't even be at this point. Anyways, we had a very spirited debate. Shout out to that person. I'm not going to bring up their government on here, but a spirited debate that turned into a spirited session after that. Now, I'm not going to tell you what, but let's just say. All right. But so we'll see. But again, we need to have alternatives, y'all. And we need to protect civilians at all costs. If you're going to try to find a two-state, solution, which I mean, there's got to be a two-state solution at some point. You can't just, and I know they've been doing this for centuries upon centuries upon centuries, but there's got to be a way to coexist without people having to leave where they've been living. And yeah, we could go even further into the debate we had last night, where this person was saying, well, that wasn't their righteous home anyways. And I'm like, look, we're not going to go back to the 400s, okay? Because they've been fighting over this land for the longest amount of time. So you can say each and both had controls over this land for different periods. What we need to say is that civilians are dying and we need to save them. Okay? We also need to look at Iran. How do we fix the water conservation there? How do we do desalinization, recycling? How do we get regional cooperation within the Middle East so that there is more water and food for the safety of the civilians? We got to figure this out, and we got to stop. Obviously, we all know terrorist groups run a lot of things around there. Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, so on and so forth. 3 H names there. Very odd. But, we need to make sure we are coordinating better the United States with our regional allies, having diplomatic back channels, strengthening our forces around the Middle East and with our partners there in mutual deterrence agreements to make sure that things like this, aggressions like that, do not happen. Because then what happens next is China and Russia. And don't think it's not going to happen, because it is. Russia already has been coming out about nuclear weapons, so much so that President Donald Trump authorized 2 nuclear submarines to go outside of Russia on patrol in case Russia does something crazy. So while you have Israel and Hamas on the Gaza Strip, you also have Russia and Ukraine, and they're doing the same sorts of issues, these same sorts of back and forth. Will we, won't we, ceasefire, no ceasefire? But what we need to know is that these are just facades, y'all. Russia, China, these terrorist groups, North Korea, they are using these things as avenues to try to topple the United States. Well, look, I support President Donald Trump sending those nuclear submarines to patrol Russia. Tape up your tits and tango, Vladimir, because we ain't got time for this bullshit. All right, Russia, we ain't playing these games. We know we can beat you. Now, we also know you have MAD, mutually assured destruction. We know you got the dead hand policy, which means that you'll set off a nuclear war if attacked. So that's why we don't attack you. That's why you don't attack us. But don't get it twisted. It's because the United States will win that war. Now, yes, millions of lives will be lost. Hundreds of millions of lives will be lost on both sides. But the United States will win that war. Now you look at Russia and Ukraine, right? We keep talking about this. Finally, it came out today. Putin has said he wants to end the war. How many times have we heard him say that? Now, apparently, it also came out today that President Donald Trump is going to meet with Putin in Alaska next week. Possibly even Ukraine will be there. So hopefully we do see a ceasefire. But even when this happens, how long do those things actually last? Right? So what do we need to do in these sorts of situations? Because we can't have Russia taking over all of Ukraine. They already want 50% of what they've taken, and they wanted more, but luckily Ukraine is holding the other 2 provinces at this point in time. We need to renew strategic arms talks with Russia. We need to have a new treaty between us and Russia. We also need to have a new treaty between us and China. We also have to have multilateral communication and partnerships between us and NATO and us and the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Korea. South Africa, excuse me. And we also need more diplomacy, independent diplomacy involving officials that can be more neutral when it comes to things like ceasefire agreements and or negotiations between countries. Because if not, then we are going to get the things that China and North Korea are doing. Did you hear that North Korea also gave the United States a nuclear ultimatum? Yeah. North Korea came out, Kim Jong-un's daughter, the future president of North Korea, came out and said that we need to accept the new nuclear reality. This followed the increased sanctions and military that Donald Trump put out there. So what do we do here? Now we're going to have more talks with North Korea, because we're going to have to come up with some kind of treaty between us and North Korea. We can't have that happen as well, because they are nuclear capable as well. We need to have denuclearization talks around the world. We need to have freeze for freeze proposals, reinitiating moratorium-based negotiations where us and these other countries have these agreements where these nuclear weapons are not to be used, and that we're not going to keep producing nuclear weapons. It's fine that we all have nuclear. It's not fine, but it's understood that everyone has nuclear weapons. But we have to find a way to get away from not using those nuclear weapons, because things just devolve after that. And all it's going to do is we're going to continue to one-up each other, right? Until the end of time. Look at China. China, if y'all didn't hear, y'all, has a new J-20 stealth jet. And you're like, whatever, we got our own stealths, the US, the F-35, F-36, so on and so forth. And yes, our stealth jets are still better than China's. But let me let you in on a little secret that you didn't know that happened this past week. There's a strait around the Taiwanese, Japanese, Chinese area. It is a strait that is monitored by 4 different countries. The aforementioned, right? China, Japan, Taiwan, United States, even the Koreans. They flew this stealth jet through this area and were not noticed by anyone, not even the United States. That means they built a stealth jet that not even we were able to recognize. This is how bad it's going to get in the future. We need to start having talks and figuring things out. We cannot be fighting with all of these different countries around the world, because it might be one thing to fight Russia and beat them one-on-one. It might be one thing to fight North Korea and beat them one-on-one. It might be one thing to fight China and beat them one-on-one. It's a whole new ball game if it's us versus all of them, aka World War III. That's what we do not want. I thank you all for tuning in today. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to Barry Ailcastle on IG. I see you didn't comment today. That's okay. I'm sure you'll send some text messages to me about the show and what I needed to fix. I hope it was a little more streamlined for you today. I appreciate that that feedback that you gave me there. Me and ChatGPT had a good laugh about it. Anyways, look, y'all. Final thoughts for the evening. Whether it's Trump voting pardons like trial balloons, federal grand juries targeting 2016 Obama-era officials over a Russiagate hoax to try to cover up the Epstein list, to immigration prisons popping up like whack-a-moles. What is Speedway Slammer? Did you hear about that? The Indianapolis Speedway, they're going to turn into a jail for migrants. How about the alligator Alcatraz they already had? Which, by the way, a judge is fighting that and trying to close that or stop that from happening. I mean, it feels like 2025 is a Law and Order marathon directed by Quentin Tarantino. Like, it's just getting wild out here, y'all. Absolutely crazy. 2025 clearly is writing checks that our sanity cannot cash now, and our asses won't be able to cash later. But hey, at least we got football back, right? Hey, let's go. Get lucky or be dusty, as my brother Clever D would say. That being said, I thank y'all for tuning in. Another episode of The Professor's Semanalmente. I am your host, Omar the Professor Fonseca. Please make sure you subscribe at Ball and Buds, BALLANDBUDS on YouTube. Handy QR code up there at the top. will take you to all our social media profiles. Please make sure you subscribe to YouTube as well. Hit that like button, whether you're watching now or on the replay. It definitely helps us out. And y'all, I got some good news. We got to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We are looking on up. So I got a brand new logo coming for y'all. I said I would get when we got to 1,000. Shout out to everybody. Ball and Bud Sports and Entertainment. We are on our way to the top. So again, Omar the Professor Fonseca, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure that you subscribe to Ball and Buds, hit that like button, and go out this week. Be successful. Be kind to each other. Do your best. And spread love the Omar way. Holla. 5,000. He's with the millions.
It's that world heavyweight flow. Championship belt wrapped around my waist, yo. I got that Ric Flair figure flow. Slam you on the pavement, that's why they call me Street Pro. Create heat on beat close. Like Jordan after the second time he three-peated, folks. Get ready, set, let's go. Fight toe to toe, release the flow created by this mic pro. Lights, camera, get low. Action packed, back to back. In fact, this monster will grow. Y'all better let him know. Man with the master plan, and you have no need to know. You came prepared, now get ready for the show.
Sports Professor. Oh!